Joining me is Brandon Arnold. He's the Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union. Good morning, Brandon. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me this morning.
Yes. So give me a brief mission statement of the National Taxpayers Union. What do you guys... It seems self-explanatory, but you do your best to be nonpartisan, I know, but tell me, what is your mission statement?
Yeah, our goal is to represent taxpayers at all levels of government. We kind of focus mostly on federal government, but we do a lot of work at the state and local level as well. The goal is to be a voice for taxpayers to make sure our taxes don't get high, the government doesn't get too big, and that the government, by and large, stays off the backs of individuals and businesses.
You guys have, how long you been around?
Oh, we've been around since the late 60s. We've been around for over 50 years, going strong.
Yeah, but you've been losing a lot of battles because, boy, the tax, I'm not meaning to knock you. I mean, look at how taxes have gone up in those 60 years. It's been like swimming upstream against this government.
Yeah, unfortunately, we lose more often than we win, and I say that not just as NTU, of course, but I think as the American taxpayer. I think government has gotten significantly larger. Taxes have gotten higher, but, if it weren't for folks like us, for other allies that we have, and a handful of members of Congress, I think the government ought to be a little smaller than it actually is, and I think things would have been much, much worse.
Yeah, they'd be even worse, no doubt about it. Truly, no doubt about it. So I wanted to get you on to talk about this Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that's got a lot of people with their undies in a bunch. First of all, what is the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act?
Yeah, well, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was originally passed in 2017 during Trump's first administration. This was the big tax bill. We often call it the Trump tax cuts. Cut the corporate rate, doubled the child tax credit, doubled the standard deduction, provided a tax cut to more than 80% of Americans, as well as, of course, our business community. And that's when we saw the economy take off in 2018, 2019. Economy got stronger, wages went up, inflation was low, a lot of the great stuff that we want to see from the economy. Most of the tax bill actually sunsets at the end of this year. Mm-hmm. So if we don't pass something through Congress and get it signed by the president, individuals, working class Americans, small businesses, everyone is going to basically see their taxes go up. We have to get that done. And on top of that, we're trying to basically tackle the major points of Trump's agenda all in one big, beautiful bill, as he said it. So this tax provision, all these tax provisions, plus border security, plus energy independence. And by the way, let's do so in a fiscally responsible way, which means decreasing the national debt rather than adding to it. That, I think, is the goal here. It's an ambitious goal, but it's an incredibly important one.
But they're demagoguing this. This is the one that I think it's Cory. I forget who's doing a sit-in, Cory Booker and somebody. I mean, the more grandstanding, because this is hurting the American people. It's quite the opposite. If we don't continue this Trump, as they refer to the Trump tax cuts, but as it really is accurately called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, if we don't extend that, it's going to be the largest tax increase in history. That's what they're saying.
Absolutely. So just on the tax side of things, yes, if you look at the average family in this country making, say, $80,000, family of four, if we don't get this tax bill extended, they're facing a $1,700 tax increase. This is at a time when we've seen credit card debt go through the roof, where we're seeing delinquencies on mortgages, on auto loans, and so forth, and people are really struggling to pay the utility bills, groceries, and everything. To raise taxes to the tune of $1,700 a month on average families, I think would really be devastating and throw a lot of people in the red who are just keeping their eyeballs above the waterline. So the Democrats hate it because they call it a tax cut for the rich, but it's a tax cut for everybody. Rich, middle class, working class, poor, everybody gets a tax cut. So I think they're just demagoguing this because they don't like Trump and they don't like anything in the way of tax relief.
Right. So they're totally misconstruing this. I mean, they're doing this as the exact opposite. They're saying this is going to be the end of middle class tax increases. I don't understand how this is going to be a rhetorical question more than anything, but it is this time the facts are not even close to being on their side. This is an extension of what's happened. We already know that what happened was good for all of us. I don't even know how they get away with saying it's going to be terrible for the middle class, for the poor, except that they have the mainstream media carrying the water and the misinformation, because quite honestly, all you're doing is, this is, in essence, really, there might be a few new, are there new things in this extension, or is it just the extension and you're just trying to pass what already was passed once before?
Well, the bill's still coming together, so I think there will be some new things in there, but the core of it is extending what was there before. And as I said from the outset, we saw what happened in 2017 after this bill took effect. Wages went up. The average American saw a wage increase of about $6,000. So that's not just tax relief, it's economic growth that helps people just pay their bills. It just puts more money in their pocket as their wages go up and pulls people off of government programs, which is also a very good thing, obviously. So, yeah, we're not necessarily reinventing the wheel. I think there will be the inclusion of some of Trump's tax priorities that he's talked about, since he started campaigning for his second term, things like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security earnings. So there will be some additional things added into this, but the notion that this is some sort of giveaway for the rich or, some sort of disastrous plan, I think has pretty much been undermined by the truth, by what we saw take place when this bill initially took effect in 2018.
I hope it's been undermined by the truth, because again, here's Cory Booker, and I can't remember the other one. They're doing a sit-in, and they'll get coverage, and it'll be construed as this is a tax increase. It really is remarkable to get away with it. Now, two things that I want to sort of tie into this. This is one from a listener. There was talk that tax-paying homeowners might get dollars from Doge savings. Could you ask the status of that, please? I don't know if you know if would any of that be rolled into this bill, if there's really any savings? Would there be anything coming through Doge or in this particular bill, or do you know that?
Yeah, that has been discussed. It has not been included in any formal piece of legislation thus far. But as I said, this bill is coming together, and the House version is going to be coming together, knock on wood, over the next 3 weeks. The goal is to get a bill finalized in the House, at least. That still leaves the Senate and, of course, the president's approval to be handled down the road. But I think that the House piece ideally will be wrapped up before Memorial Day. So it's possible something like that can come along. And I think we have to be very careful there, because, yes, we want people to be bought into this Doge process, and Republicans and conservatives are very supportive of Doge. Democrats considerably less so, which is shocking to hear. But providing some benefit to the average taxpayer, I think, is valuable. But at the same time, we have a $37 trillion national debt. So most of these savings, I think, need to be applied to driving down that debt, because we can't afford to saddle our children and grandchildren with trillions of dollars of debt that is going to wreck the economy, that is fiscally unsustainable. And it's just really morally wrong to do that to future generations. So we need to be kind of balanced in this approach to provide some relief, to get people to really support that process and to support rooting out the waste, fraud, and abuse that we all know exists in the federal government, but also being fiscally responsible about it.
Well, two questions. And Donald Trump is saying, let me see if I can find that income tax cuts and perhaps elimination would be coming due to tariffs. I don't know where you guys stand on tariffs, but even if they are coming, again, I think the same thing. You'd say the same thing. Even if we do get this big windfall from tariffs, again, it should be applied to paying down the debt. Or go ahead, talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think that's by and large true. I don't think the math really works to eliminate the income tax altogether. The individual income tax is the primary source of revenue for our federal government, and in total, our revenue stream is the size of our government, I should say, is about $6.75 trillion based on last year's spending. We only bring in about $4 trillion in imported goods. So to get that, even if you tariffed at 150%, you'd be about where you needed to be. But then it's just an unsustainable source of revenue, because if you had tariffs that high, we wouldn't import stuff. And then as you import less stuff, we bring in less revenue, and our deficits go from ridiculous, which they are now, to just completely unsustainable. So I just don't think the math works. Sorry to do math so early in the morning here, but I don't think the math really works there. You can get some relief perhaps on our deficit picture by applying those tariff revenues to offset the massive amounts of red ink that we have. But I don't think it's enough to offset the entirety of the federal income tax.
Well, you said the budget was, would you say $6.7 trillion was last year?
Yeah, that's about what we spent last year.
You said some words though that are part of the problem. You said 6.7 based on last year's spending. And we don't do zero-based budgeting. We should be. Why we always? I don't. I know you're not for it either. You're not for basing everything on, well, what did we spend last year, and then we got to at least do that this year. As the National Taxpayers Union, do you advocate for zero-based budgeting? You know, going back to zero every year and starting over.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be smart. And let me be clear. I think we spend too much. I would like to see that 6.75 come down significantly. But just we got a long way to go before we start turning that aircraft carrier around.
Do you think Doge has found some legitimate? Because there have been all kinds of reporting, and yet I'm not seeing any results yet. What is legitimate of what Doge has found, and what is the possibility of anything that they found being implemented?
Yeah, well, I think they're going to be tackling that over the next week or two, at least a portion of it. Doge is sending, the work that Doge is doing is informing a package that the administration will send to Congress this year. It's called rescissions, which is a nerdy way of just saying they're going to cut some spending. And that's primarily going to come from the USAID, which has gotten a lot of attention in the media, the NPR and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and so forth. And it's about $9 billion that they're going to send. And I certainly support cutting $9 billion, but at a time when we're running $2 trillion annual deficits, we got a long way to go. So, yes, Doge is doing important work. They're uncovering a lot of things. My opinion is that really needs to go through the congressional process to be locked into law if those savings are going to be locked in permanently.
Right.
Otherwise, what you're going to see is as soon as Donald Trump's out of office, that spending's going to go back. Or we're going to see even sooner than that, the spending go before a court and they say, the executive branch can't do that unilaterally. And then the judiciary puts that spending right back. So I think Congress needs to play an important role in that process. Right,
I agree. So because it has to come through the Congress, otherwise it's temporary. And the way to do that, honestly, Trump's got to really be successful. He's got to get the inflation down. He's got to get things turned around, jobs coming back, whatever, because he needs a big win in the midterms to get things through Congress. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. The interesting thing is that the Democrats' polling is horrible. It's the worst it's been in years, and yet he hasn't turned the economy around, etc. It's only been 99 days, but everybody expects a miracle. He's got to do it. I think he's got about a year to get this ship righted, because that's when people are going to start considering midterms, and like you said, this needs to be permanent. So, give me your thoughts on that, I guess.
I think you're absolutely right. Trump's approval numbers are going to go up and down based on economic performance. And right now things have obviously been shaky. Hopefully that's a short-term thing. Hopefully some of this tariff uncertainty will be resolved soon. We'll have trade deals that start to stabilize the economy, and then we'll get the deregulatory and tax agenda that creates growth. But there's a lot of asterisks, a lot of ifs there. We need a Congress to play ball. We need a lot of things to work out in our favor, especially in terms of these trade negotiations, because that uncertainty is going to hang over our heads until those deals are reached. And that's my biggest concern, really, is prices. People put Trump into office because they want to see prices go down. We dealt with a nightmare 4 years of Biden prices going through the roof. Tariffs naturally put upward pressure on prices, so we need to reach really good trade deals and stabilize that price escalation and get the inflation back to where it was in Trump's first term. We drove inflation down below 2%. Well, in Trump's second year.
Price of eggs are down. Price of fuel is down. Actually, they stopped. I forget which couple of American companies stopped for doing shale because the price of oil has dropped precipitously. So, bottom line is that those two things are coming down. We just got to see it happen, at the pump and everything else, or wherever else it goes. And then the other last thing and last thought on this is, how much is a president? How much can he do by executive order? Because I'm shocked at how much lawfare they're still doing. Forget bad enough the lawfare when they were trying to put him in jail, but the lawfare they're doing to thwart his agenda, even on you got to give the colleges money for this, and you got to still fund this. I just am shocked by how much the judges are interfering. What are your thoughts, and how much do they have a right? How much can he do?
Well, the dangerous thing here is we always have to think about executive authority, not in terms of how much power do we want to go to the guys that we like, but how much power do we want to go to the guys down the road that we don't like. My sense is always be very cautious in giving the executive power. When you give somebody unilateral action, you got to think of what that would be like in the hands of a Joe Biden or a Barack Obama, or maybe down the road somebody even more disastrous like an AOC or somebody like that. So, I think in terms of the Constitution, we need to make sure that there's a division of power. The checks and balances that our founding fathers set up are absolutely critical for the stability of our country and stability of our democracy. If that means hemming in President Trump even when he's trying to do good things, we need to be respectful of the constitutional process here. And really that we're going to have activist judges that try to flex their muscles and so forth. It comes down to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, we need to respect their decisions even when we disagree with them, because heaven knows we've disagreed with many of them down the road that haven't gone our way. And sometimes they do go our way, like they did just recently with the Chevron case, which actually hems in executive power even more. Yeah,
there's the Humphrey executor thing. Did you see that one?
Refresh my memory. That was
let me see if I could find it here. The court's moment of truth, presidential integrity on the line, and that was this decision that somehow the Founding Fathers made it real clear in the and I got to run here because I got another guest, but Founding Fathers made it real clear in the Constitution, Article 2, I think it was, that said it's not an invitation to creative interpretation. The executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America. This phrase is not a polite suggestion or a vague grant of managerial oversight. It's definitive. And yet Humphrey's executor, however, introduced a gerrymandering of executive power. And that happened in 1935, and Trump has already put everybody on notice that they're going to go to the Supreme Court to end this Humphrey's executor. It's similar to Chevron deference. Anyway, I'm hoping, again, just keeping in mind what you just said, it would really give the executive power, but you better be careful in case we have AOC. But it somehow this Humphrey's executor got introduced, and they're saying it never should have been, and they're trying to get it undone, and they think there's a good shot of it. So I shot at it. I don't know if you want to.
I defer to we have a team of legal experts that I defer to on questions like that. But yeah, I think that's a really important case there. I do think that the president needs to have authority within the executive branch. But I was very frustrated when Joe Biden tried to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on student loan bailouts because I thought that was an abuse of executive power. So I just think there's lessons that we need to learn there, and I think most of the spending decisions need to run through the Congress, because that's what Article 1 says, of course.
Brandon Arnold, Executive VP of the National Taxpayers Union, NTU.org. NTU.org. Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yep.